Do you have a dog? Is it chronically depressed because you don't spend enough time with it? Do you have quality time on your hands? Well, fear not. For this video, we'll show you just how to train your dog and the benefits behind it. First, to learn how to train your dog, you must learn the history behind dog training. So to begin, dog training was sparked by a study made by a Russian psychologist whose name is Ivan Pavlov, who began studying about the canine's digestive system in 1890. His study was to make stimuli of humans connect with stimuli of canines such as dogs, which is called classical conditioning. In Pavlov's study, he predicted that dogs would salivate when food is placed in front of them. However, when doing the test, he realized that dogs actually salivate when they hear the footsteps of the person giving them the food. One of Pavlov's tests was to ring a bell before giving the dog food, and what this did was it caused the dog to salivate to the sound of the bell rather than the food being placed in front of them. Since then, dogs have been taught to do so much more, and it's easier to count what they can't do rather than what they can do. In the early days of dog training, dogs were able to herd animals such as sheep and guard your property from any unknown individuals, and they were also able to help you out when hunting. Now, how it works. Your dog has two types of stimuli that will cause them to react in a certain way. They are called conditioned responses. There are two types of responses, such as unconditioned responses and conditioned responses. An example of unconditioned responses would be when during the Pavlov experiment, when the dog salivates when food is placed in front of them. This would be unconditioned because you don't need to teach the dog to salivate when food is placed in front of them, as this is already a response they had since birth. A conditioned response would be when you associate an object with the food, for example, the bell that Pavlov had used in his experiment, and when there are more times when you associate that object with the food or something else. Then the dog will begin to react a certain way after hearing or seeing something after a few times. Now this will click into their brain and they'll begin to react a certain way. For example, when your dog hears a doorbell ring, it may bark at it because it already suspects that there is a stranger at the door. Now, for the benefits of dog training. Training your dog can actually benefit you and your dog itself. For example, when training your dog will begin to have more of a bond with you since you are spending more time with your dog. Plus, another benefit for dog training is that your pet will be much easier to manage if you were to teach him certain things not to do. For example, you can potty train your dog so he doesn't take a crap on your couch or anything. And it would be much better to have control of what your dog is doing just in case you don't want them to do a certain thing. One other benefit of dog training is that they'll be much safer around others, meaning if you have a hyperactive dog, they will want to play a lot more and run all over the place. You can teach a dog to be more careful around others, and they can even protect you when doing so. Which brings us to the next benefit. Dogs can actually be a very good guard to your house and can protect you from any unknown individuals when well trained. Not only that, but dog training can actually potentially save your life as well. If you were to ever get a seizure, dogs can actually be trained so that they can bark and look out for help, which can potentially save your life while doing so. Dogs can also be taught to swim and can even prevent you or others from drowning. Dogs have also been in instances where they have saved people from burning buildings. An example of this would be from a house fire in Florida 3 years ago, where the dog would heroically sacrifice himself in order to save his entire family. 3 years ago, a home in Florida unexpectedly caught on fire, and the fire alarm only went off for a few seconds before being set on fire, which failed to wake up the family. That was until a Jack Russell Terrier named Zippy was quick to respond as he began to bark all over the house, which woke up the entire family. Leroy Butler, the homeowner, ran outside the house along with the family, but only to realize that Zippy was still inside the house, engulfed in flames. Unable to save Zippy, Zippy suffocated from the smoke and is still seen as a true hero today. With this, there can be a lot of different instances where your dog can help you out and save your life since they would really love and care about you. In order to begin training your dog, first you will need a few things. Those things would be time and patience, a lot of treats, a clicker would be recommended, and of course your dog. You would need a lot of treats to give to your dog as it is one of the most effective part of training your dog. This is because your dog loves getting treats and loves getting affection as well. So an effective technique you can do so that the dog understands its part in its training is to give it a lot of treats and a lot of affection. What you should do is teach your dog something new to do for say 15 minutes. Next, once you see that your dog has done something you want him to do, like for example, give you its paw, sit, or lay down, then you would use your clicker and give him a treat. However, you should only use your clicker after they do the trick that you want them to do, not before. For example, if you were to ask a dog to lie down and give him a treat after he stands up, he would become confused because he would not understand what the treat was for. He wouldn't understand if the treat was for lying down or if it was for standing up. Now, from what you have learned, you learned that dog training was first sparked by a Russian scientist named Ivan Pavlov in 1890 during his study. You also learned that your dog has two types of stimuli that will cause them to react in a certain way, and they are called conditioned responses. You also learned that there are two types of responses, such as unconditioned responses and conditioned responses. You also learned that dog training can benefit you and your dog itself, as it is easier to manage and can also grow a very loving bond toward you. You learned that dogs can potentially save the life of you and others when trained properly. And last but not least, you also learned that you can begin training your dog by simply giving it commands using a clicker and using treats. And you should only train them for 15 minutes so it doesn't stress out the dog. With that being said, I hope you have an amazing time training your dog, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And the works cited will be down in the description below.